We are now on the precipice of the top 5 in our countdown of the Super Bowl era's most disappointing teams. We last left you at number 7 with the 2024 Dallas Cowboys, and our number 6 entry, the gateway to that top 5, is coming up next. But before we get to them, let us tell you about C-Score. C-Score is a metric created by this channel with a single purpose: to properly evaluate each and every team of the Super Bowl era instead of simply looking at its record. For a deeper explanation about how C-Score works, be sure to check out the description of this video. This is how we define disappointment for the purposes of this countdown. A team will land a positive C-score in Season 1. In Season 2, that C-score will rise and be at least a 15. Then, that same team will drop down to a negative C-score in Season 3, with this one serving as the disappointment. The larger the drop from Season 2 to Season 3, the higher that disappointment will rank. If there was any team in this top 10 that could be thought to have flown under the radar, it would be this team, the 1976 Buffalo Bills. Not known for achieving a whole lot of success before the 1990s, the Bills did show some life in the mid-70s before this clunker of a season. Thank you for taking some time with us today. Please like and share this video, subscribe to the channel if you've yet to do so, and don't forget to ding that notification bell. Let's circle our wagons around these Buffalo Bills. The 1974 Buffalo Bills were a solid, if unspectacular, team. That 9-5 record looks pretty good, better than a plus 20 point differential, and double-digit rankings across the board in points scored, points allowed, and strength of schedule. This all landed them a C-score of 3.668. After playing for the AFL Championship as the two-time defending AFL champions, and the right to go to the very first Super Bowl in 1966, the Bills fell on really hard times, going 17, 64, and 3 over 6 seasons between 1967 and 1972. For a little perspective, the Miami Dolphins won that many games in 1972 alone. 1973 saw them turn things around with a 9-5 record, which they of course duplicated here in 1974. It wasn't easy though. A 7-1 start, with that lone loss coming to the now back-to-back reigning Super Bowl champion Dolphins, was followed by a 2-4 finish, including yet another loss to Miami. Since the 1970 merger, no team had earned a wildcard spot with 5 losses in either conference. This season, though, the Bills were the first to do so. They had to go to Pittsburgh in the divisional round, though, and with the Steelers on the road to a dynasty, Buffalo fell in fairly straightforward fashion. But that didn't dampen what they had accomplished. For one thing, they are the last NFL team to win a game without a single completed forward pass, something that is highly unlikely to ever happen again. With the debut of a new logo and uniforms and a second consecutive winning season, it felt like something new was on its way in Western New York. Already armed with one of the most dedicated fan bases in the nation, the time of the Buffalo appeared to be nigh. And even though the scoreboard didn't always show it, this was a dramatically improved team in 1975. Their schedule got a lot harder, and in response, the Bills just came out and led the entire league in scoring. The defense didn't always do its part though, and they got stuck at 8-6, but that C-score shot up to 15.357. We say it a lot on this channel, but only because we mean it, and also because it's true. C-score exists for situations like these. Strictly by their record, the Buffalo Bills were a better team in 1974 than they were in 1975. But a deeper look, a more thorough look, tells us this is not the case. They improved their point differential by 45 points, itself a telling indicator, but they did so against much harder competition. If Tulane went to the SEC next season and won one fewer game than they did this season. Are they a worse team? Yes, that's an extreme example, but the point still stands. Buffalo won 6 games by multiple possessions, 5 of those by at least 14 points. They also had a losing record in 1-possession games, going 2-3, including their first 2 losses after a 4-0 start. We mentioned that they led the league in scoring this season. Well, they did more than that. They set the post-merger record with 420 points scored, exactly 30 per game. They were the highest scoring team of the entire 1970s, even accounting for 2 extra games and rule changes benefiting offensive football in 1978 and 1979. It wasn't until the record-breaking offense of the 1983 Washington Redskins that another team surpassed 30 points per game in a full season. From 1984 to 1997, only 3 more teams accomplished the feat. The 91 Redskins and the 94 49ers are top-level Super Bowl champions, while the 1984 Miami Dolphins went to the Super Bowl and lost to a top-level Super Bowl champion. To summarize, this was a fantastic offense that was unfortunately saddled with the 3rd worst defense in the league. They were the first to lead the league in scoring that didn't make the playoffs, something that has only happened 5 times in total. Surely, even with some offensive regression, an improved defense and a more forgiving schedule could lead to something better in 1976. I suppose it would have had any of that come to fruition. The schedule did become much easier, but there wasn't a damn thing these Bills could do about it. The defense remained pretty bad, but the offense got much, much worse. After 3 consecutive winning seasons, the 1976 Buffalo Bills were right back to their ways from 1967 through 1972, going 2-12, getting outscored by 118 points, and sinking to the depths of C-score at negative 25.176. Things started badly before the first snap of the season. O.J. Simpson, the team's star running back and arguably the most famous athlete in the United States at the time, was in a contract dispute. It got to the point that Simpson asked for a trade. He got signed right before the season started, but it wasn't enough to prevent Buffalo from losing its first 2 games. They faced the expansion Tampa Bay Buccaneers the following week, becoming the first team to allow the Bucs to score any points of any kind in a slim 14-9 victory. They then hammered the Kansas City Chiefs the following week in a vintage Buffalo Bills offensive performance by a score of 50-17. At 2-2, the Bills were back and ready to unleash another offensive onslaught. They only made it halfway to 50 points one more time all season, and even that was in an 18-point loss. Buffalo lost 10 straight games to end the season at 2-12. Only the aforementioned Buccaneers were worse, and only their expansion brethren, the Seattle Seahawks, were just as bad. Even though O.J. Simpson eventually got his legs under him and went on to win the rushing title, the effect of his holdout continued to linger. Head coach Lou Saban was angered by the way the holdout and subsequent re-signing was handled by owner Ralph Wilson. 5 games into the season, with the Bills sitting at 2-3 and nowhere near the calamity that would eventually arrive, Saban resigned as head coach. His replacement, Jim Ringo, was a Hall of Fame player, primarily for the Green Bay Packers. His coaching career would not follow suit, for as we know, his interim stint produced exactly 0 victories. Losing quarterback Joe Ferguson, the NFL leader in touchdown passes the season before, didn't help. But even worse was his replacement, Gary Morangi. His 7-game stint as a starter that season is the worst single season produced by a qualifying quarterback ever, at least since the merger. Worse than Ryan Leaf, worse than Jamarcus Russell, the absolute worst. And of course, the defense was still a mess, whose best player was probably linebacker Merv Croker. Mass props to you if you remember Merv Croker. One last note on O.J. Simpson here. This was his 4th rushing title in 5 seasons. The one season he didn't win it, that was the season Buffalo made it to the playoffs. Always remember, football is a team sport, and the 1976 Buffalo Bills were a bad and a disappointing team. We stated that the 76 Bills are probably the most under-the-radar team we've seen at such a high stature, but they absolutely deserve their spot here at number 6 on account of their negative 40.533 disappointment score, a drop of nearly 4 points from the 24 Cowboys and our first team under negative 40. Yet, it's about to get worse. 5 teams remain on the countdown. Be sure to join us for our next video to find out who the first of those 5 is gonna be. The Bills kept the faith in Jim Ringo as head coach for one more season. A 3-11 1977 was his personal demise, but Buffalo's demise continued. New head coach Chuck Knox brought them some glory in the early 1980s, but it wasn't until the arrival of Marv Levy that things started to turn around. Of course, that included 4 consecutive Super Bowl losses, which was then followed by getting beat by the Music City Miracle, then taking longer to get back to the playoffs than it would have taken a child born on the same day to become a legal adult. And of course, they're very good now, but have yet to break through to the Super Bowl despite undoubtedly having the talent capable of doing so. Let me know what you think about this Buffalo Bills team or the Bills franchise in general. Will it ever be their time? Would a Bills-Vikings Super Bowl cause a rift in the space-time continuum and force the universe to fold in on itself? Sound off on these topics or anything else you may have on your mind right down there in the comments section. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and until next time, I hope you have an awesome day.